So a couple months ago on Instagram, we opened up for questions. I mean, we got every question under the sun about married life, family life, being a husband, being a wife, dating, everything in between. One of the biggest questions was, what is marriage really like? So here we are. We only have our perspectives of marriage. I could have offered you my perspective alone, but I'm married to this man here.
I'm part of this marriage.
And I thought that it would be helpful, especially because I know a lot of guys watch my channel, to have him share his experience of marriage. Obviously, we can't speak to any other marriage except our own. One individual experience of what marriage is like, but we're gonna share that with you.
I'm ready.
Good. For me, the first thing I always, very often heard in my 20s and as I was dating is that marriage is hard. I heard that all the time. Did you hear that all the time?
Not so much, just because not a lot of people talked about marriage for me, I think, growing up.
Both of our parents have been married for over 35 years.
Yeah.
Which has been a huge blessing, gift, and foundation for our own marriage. It's something
Sure.
that we don't take for granted, is the love that our parents share.
And the example that they set.
And the example that they set, because I know how hard they've worked over the years and, what the perseverance that it's taken for them to get to where they are today. And it's been a great blessing in our lives to have those examples.
Yeah, I think it's been especially helpful having that example and having that something to look towards and to strive for as well.
So often when I was looking at marriage, people just said it was hard. And I just didn't know what that meant. I was like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? What is so hard about it? And I think there's this cloud of mystery. What does it mean that marriage is so hard? And I think one of the first most important things in life is to separate the connection in people's minds between hard and bad. So many people think hard, that means it's bad. When that's not the reality at all. Like someone who runs Ironman, you don't just run, you bike, and you swim. Doing an Ironman is really hard, but there's great reward to that. There's a good reason to do that, and it's hard, but it's good. The same way motherhood is really hard, but it's not like, this is so hard, it's so bad. It's so hard, and there's such meaning behind it, and there's such value to it, and that's something that I believe is so important to understand about building a faithful marriage.
So what do you think about our marriage?
We both said you have to bring your answer to the video, and we have to know, and we'll hear from each other. But for me, marriage has been an incredibly positive experience. My own self, in my own honest, just sharing with you guys, I have not found marriage to be as hard as everyone told me it was going to be. A lot of people made it seem like we would fight a lot and have a lot of, different conflict points, all the time. And that's what I just envisioned. I just envisioned a lot of love, but a lot of fighting and a lot of just figuring things out together and, which we have. But there's a lot of different reasons I think that it hasn't been as hard for me as maybe I thought it was going to be. One of those is our communication that we had to build when we were long distance. We had to learn how to talk to each other, and we were not good at it.
I think we struggled so much more, I feel, while we were dating than now that we're married.
Oh my gosh.
Just fights, and there's fights about nothing, or just arguments, or just tension for no reason, or also maturity. And I'll speak from my own half. Just maturity and in the way of in dealing with different situations and feeling uncomfortable in a situation but not expressing it, or stuff like that. But
yes,
yeah.
I mean, we started dating 8.5 years ago.
I would say for myself, I know, looking back at it now, I was so much more rough around the edges, I think, than I am now. Just even with you, with myself as well. It's in the I think a lot has changed. A lot has changed for the positive, I think, and that's with anything, right? It just grows like a fine wine.
What would you say, in your own heart, has grown, for the positive? What has been the smoothing out of the edges?
I would say, obviously, the communication part, which is just difficult for me. Just as I don't want to say every guy or whatever, but for me, it was always my feelings were something I would keep to myself. I wouldn't really let my guard down a lot. If something was bothering me, I would just deal with it on my own, and then Emily would notice because I would just shut down, I guess, right? Or not express things and just be like, okay, well, I'll deal with this on my own, and whenever, I'm done with it, then, I'll
right.
be my
and
normal.
I'm like, what's wrong?
Exactly, yeah. And then I wouldn't feel like talking about it, so I wouldn't. So, and that created tension and frustration and stuff like that. So I think smoothing out the edges is realizing that I'm not perfect. I'm never going to be perfect. You're not perfect. You're never going to be perfect.
Not even
and
close.
We're both in this together. And we both love each other unconditionally. I think with dating, and maybe this in my own head, with dating, I know there was always a way out. There was still, that door wasn't fully closed, so I knew if I really wanted to, I could get out.
Yeah,
but if you really wanted to, you could get out as well. And so, you're fully committed to each other. And I was always fully committed to you, and I feel you were always fully committed to me. But there's still that,
there's an
fully
exit
committed
plan.
doesn't mean, and that's good as well, right? Even though you're dating or you're engaged or whatever, you're not married yet, right? So there's always, if something comes up and whatever it would be, follow your heart for sure. But I think now being married, I know whatever happens, whatever it is, wherever we go, whatever it'll be, we'll work through it together and deal with it together.
So one of our friends said that there's no way out of this marriage, there's only a way through.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's and that's the beauty of it, right? And that's that foundation that was laid, that just seals that foundation, I feel. You know what I mean? Like, that says that foundation, anything that you build on top of that, it can get cracks or whatever, and then you have to work again or rebuild it again or whatever it might be. But the foundation is laid, and that's sealed, and that's always going to be there. You build your house on rock, right? And so for me, it was really a lot of the communication parts, but also being intentional, not being selfish as much. And marriage is a lot about the other person, and
totally.
There was a lot of smoothing our directions for myself, because just being focused on myself a lot and just on my own interest instead of the other person's interest, and figuring out what works for me and works for you and works for the two of us together, took time.
And it's something we're learning every day.
And that's the thing. It's funny because you still, learn new things about each other here and there. People always say that, and I'm always curious, okay, so what did you learn, or what was it then? But just the little things, like Emily went out for, a night yesterday to go painting and hang out with friends, and how much you expressed to me that you love, you would want to sit down and paint and you want to make that a thing. I'm like, and whatever, how long we know each other, I never knew that.
I just dream about painting.
Yeah,
I really do.
How fun is that? But yeah, I think there's also, even we've been married, almost 6 years now? I think it's been a gradual, always, it's never been at least in my perception, there's never been a decline in, or big troubled waters or anything like that. Praise God. And who knows what comes on our way. Obviously, we've had our challenges and our things for sure. But I think a lot of it maybe still is because we're both, in a sense, still figuring ourselves out in this as well, because of the new dynamics that get added as a dad, as a father of two, as with things with work and whatever. Things change constantly. It's not that you're one and the same, and all the variables around you keep changing, so you have to keep adjusting to that.
Yeah, I think the word that was so important was building, right? You talked about building your house on a rock. Obviously, we have our shared faith, which has gotten us to this point today. But I think that what we've learned in these last 6 years, and what I've learned, is that you have to be so intentional about building a marriage rather than letting a marriage happen.
Yeah.
In 2020, I would say, was really tough for us, and tough for everybody. But it was so hard to live at home, and I would say it was a big plateau for us of we had talked about everything under the sun, and we were going through the pandemic and all these things. We were living at home. I was pregnant with Jedediah.
We were around each other for the first time for all the time,
every day.
Yeah.
So that question that we never really even addressed, we kind of just let our marriage happen during that time. I wouldn't say we were fighting a lot, but it was just kind of
no, but it was just
we're just here together.
And that caused frustration though, right? Because it caused frustration because we both have these expectations of what marriage is, and I think we both internally realize, well, we're not, at least I'm not really feeling the fulfillment, so to speak,
right.
Or I'm feeling that I myself am, on the path and building something. Yeah, that's So I guess that was really, I think, we kind of just, let marriage happen, and you felt like roommates at times, you know what I mean? We were both just so busy and taking care of the kids, and and I was just pregnant dealing with all
and pandemic-y, and it was just
we're just doing
hard.
the same thing over and over. Every night almost looked the same, and you get into this rhythm, and you're kind of just. But even though that's all weighs into it. But I think it was also just I think with me from my own thing, like as leading this family in faith and all that, I felt that with not going to church and all that, that was just difficult to navigate, and I felt, I just wasn't good in my own prayer life, in my own spiritual life, and just letting that kind of go with everything else and just go and cruise. And I think that made me feel like less of a man of myself, which then weighs into this marriage, feeling, okay, how am I supposed to lead this properly and do this? But I would say that we had a good, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months of, and not like now looking back, I can determine that. But when you're in it, you think, well, this is just the way the status and the thing, and obviously you don't feel good and you're trying to make it better. But I think at a certain point, you have to kind of wake up and say, hey, okay, let's just get back on track and see what we're doing here. And it's not easy always. That's the thing. Obviously, when we love each other,
you guys know we love each other
anything,
so much.
And even then, it gets difficult, you know what I mean?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it's not a lack of love, but I think it's a lack of, what would you say? I don't know what the word is I'm looking for.
More concrete,
or like,
yeah.
That we're
There's fruit that's coming from our marriage, right?
Yeah.
Other than the bond that we share, the unity in God.
Yeah, exactly.
But like actual fruit.
And living that marriage out in our day-to-day.
And our sons are physical fruit of our love, right? They are tangible representations of our love. But like the expressions of love toward one another, like the vibrancy in our marriage.
Yeah, the vibrancy, I think that's a good
and as anybody knows, marriages will not always, like, it's gonna have these like ebbs and flows and seasons where it's very vibrant and you feel very in love, but also these times where it's not like, oh my gosh, we're so in love, and it's like that vibrant, but then you have to like realize that, like we did, and say, okay, how can we change this?
Yeah.
Back to the question of like, how has marriage overall as an experience been for you as a man?
Overall, it's amazing because I get to spend the time with you and with my boys every single day, and that's just the greatest gift God could give me. But I think going into marriage, and again, this is my own, and I'm not saying that's a guy's thing or whatever, but my own thing
we're only speaking for ourselves.
I never really talked about, I had the example of my parents, but nobody else around me talked about marriage. Still till this day, I'm not running it through my head, but I think none of my friends are married.
Right.
Nobody's married or anything. Everybody just, is dating or lives together or, does their own thing.
Yeah.
So marriage was never really a thing that was, I don't know, I never paid too much attention to it, but I was around it with my parents and, families and stuff like that. How I've experienced it is it's asked a lot of me in a good sense, because it like they say, iron sharpens iron. But for me, marriage is a part of that iron, you know what I mean? And it helps me be a better man as well, because like I said, if my own faith life is not intact, if I'm not actively pursuing the Lord, if I'm not, actively pursuing you and taking care of my boys, that all weighs into all of this, and everybody feels that, indirectly, but it starts to add up. And so I think it challenges me to be a better version of myself and to pursue and find out more about myself, but more about the Lord at the same time. And that's really been a great gift as well. It pushes me out of my comfort zone in a lot of different ways. And, with, being a dad and all the things that come with that, the beauty of obviously of it, but also I've never really struggled with being a dad at all. But obviously there's a lot of logistical things that come with it that at times I'm like, man, wouldn't it be nice if we can just send these boys off to the grandparents, for like a week or two and just relax
and
eat a normal meal.
Yeah, kids are a lot of work. It's messy, it's loud here.
Yeah.
And that factors into the marriage that we share together. Is the dynamic of not only being husband and wife, but being mom and dad also.
Yeah, that's for both of, and obviously I myself, put myself in the driver's seat of, I want to keep pursuing you, obviously, and keep doing that. And I feel now since the beginning of this year, I really made a good effort. And we had I know we talked about that over New Year's and Christmas.
We had a big heart-to-heart on our 5-year anniversary.
That we both said, hey, we're in this for 5 years now. And the way that it's been going for those last, 6-7 months just didn't feel
just
like...
2020.
Yeah, wasn't where we wanted to be. And I think having a conversation, like that, which had a lot of build-up, and it shouldn't have even obviously taken that long to get to that place. But then we both realized, hey, let's just, kick everything into gear again and let's start, doing this. And it's been great. I feel now we're in this rhythm. We've been in this rhythm now, and it's just getting better and better and better and better again.
Yes.
How would you say we are now in our marriage versus, let's say, 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
I think that the year of marriage that we're living now, so our anniversary is on December 30th. The year of marriage that we're living now is the best one we've had since we got married.
Yeah, I agree. I think this, just with having the whole fullness of the whole family with the boys and really embracing that and really...
And we're both really striving for personal holiness.
Yeah.
I think in a way that we haven't before. We have always like strived to live our faith and, you know, grow in virtue. And, you know, we've gone to mass every single Sunday since, you know, we've got married since who knows when. But right now we're both in a place, and it really was, the catalyst was Daniel making that decision for himself in the beginning of the year has really inspired me also to like go deeper. Is Daniel really like challenged himself with the help of a couple of guys who surround him to like rise up and go even deeper in his faith as a man, as a father, as all those things. The trickle down effect of the beauty and the fruits of that in our marriage and in our home have been unbelievable.
Yeah, praise God. I mean, it's really him inviting me in and waking me up, so to speak, to say, hey, it's time to, you know, get back, you know, on the horse and just, you know, keep coming towards me instead of just, you know, plateauing, so to speak,
right.
You know. And it has been just amazing, and amazing for our marriage, I think, and our boys. So, yeah, good stuff. But yeah,
I think it's been so good.
I think even from thinking from back then, different things now have come to the forefront that are way more, you know, exciting and beautiful to me than they would have been back then, just because we're at different stages of life now. But like you said as well, I feel this year, especially I think because I'm just contrasting it to last year.
Yeah.
Because that's the closest. Obviously,
right,
I feel all of our years of marriage have been great, and I wouldn't trade a single one of them.
They've all been very positive.
Very positive, yeah. But yeah, this one's especially good now, I would say, and all of that is due to, I think, like you perfectly put it, each of us individually striving for holiness and going after the Lord, and the effect of that together.
Totally.
It's been really great.
I think we've also come to this understanding more so every year and every day how marriage isn't happiness, marriage is service. And like us both focusing on like, how can I serve the other person has been huge, right? And you think of, you know, me saying like, I love serving my husband. People be like, oh, like, you know, in this day and age, you would be like, oh my gosh, like a woman who says that is not like a strong, independent woman, but like, learning how to really serve one another is so amazing, because like I love to serve my husband, but the counterpart of that is my husband loves to serve me. And I think both of us leaning into the beauty of marriage as service has been transformative as well. And that's something we've learned year on top of year on top of year is, oh my gosh, like if I treat this like service, it's really fruitful.
What were some topics of tension? Not to get into depth or anything, but what were some things you think that we had to focus on as a couple?
We said no sugarcoating, so we're not, you know, trying to gloss over anything. This is totally the real picture. Some things that we had to work on.
I think for me there was parts of it as well with, I don't want to say like sexual frustration or anything, but I could feel as a guy, obviously, you know, and we practice NFT, I'm thinking too much like NFT crypto now. NFP. That's funny. Obviously, we practice NFP, you know, because your C-sections and the way that your body, you know, reacts.
Has to heal and all those things.
Yeah, you know, but there's times of abstinence then that, you know, in the past they would just frustrate me, you know, for, you know, just sexual, because obviously, you know, we want to be together as one and be in communion and all of that. But I think I didn't handle it properly, in a sense that it would just boil up to frustration and cause arguments or just cause me to be in a poorer mood than for me to actively deal with it and express it to you as well, in a sense like, hey, this is kind of what I'm feeling, this is what I'm missing, and this is maybe why I'm, you know, acting like this. The more open we are, even, we've always been open, obviously, about all those things, but with expressing me as well, hey, I'm actually feeling these things, and I'm just saying that so that we can both know what's going on and talk about it, you know, and then that we're both, and we can then find a substitute for, okay, let's just, you know, go out on a date and then let's do something, you know, another activity or a thing or, you know, something together, because at the end of the day, it's about being close, you know, it's, and, you know, that's one of my love languages, physical touch and all that, so, you know. Yeah. And
that's one of the beautiful things. We can talk about NFP another time. A lot of people have asked me to like make a video on that. But the reality is that like we've learned throughout this time and throughout our marriage to express our love to each other in different ways other than sex, because there's so many times in your marriage, like after I had my C-section for a long time, that you can't have sex, and you have to know how to express love, how to communicate with one another in ways other than that, which is so essential to the health of your marriage.
And think as a guy though, and again, this is from my own, you know, a lot of the physical thing is in having sex, you know what I mean? That's where I feel that bond and feel those things. And so that's why the importance of having substitutes for that still give you that same satisfaction of being close to each other and being connected.
Very important.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's real. Yeah, that was a big source of like communication frustration for Daniel, learning how to articulate that, and me articulating my side and things like that. We could talk more about that another day. For me, I think one of the biggest things in our marriage, and I was talking to a woman recently, she articulated it so well, is that Daniel is so logical, and he just wants to solve the problem, and he just wants to make the solution. And there's some times, and this has been such a source of me learning to communicate to Daniel, is to say, I'm going to talk about how I feel in this moment, and I don't want you to offer me a solution, and I don't want you to try to fix the problem, and I don't want you to try to say, like, I don't get why you feel that way. Like, I want you to just accept how I feel and listen to me. And that's been a source of frustration for me, like trying to teach Daniel how to love me in that way.
Yeah, because honestly, it's difficult for me.
It totally
because
is.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right?
Let's just do this.
He can't get why I feel this way about this thing when it just doesn't make sense. And logically, I know that it doesn't. But I'm a woman. And, only speaking for myself, like you, I'm emotional sometimes about different things. And emotional in a way, I'm a mother, postpartum, pregnant, all these things.
Stack them up.
Right? They don't, my emotions don't make sense sometimes. And that has been a source of frustration for me to say, I need you to learn how to love me in that way, to just listen. And get that you're not going to get why I feel like this, but I need you to accept that this is how I feel. And I need you to validate that this is how I feel, and that it's okay that I feel this way, and just to sit with me there rather than try to get me out of that place.
Yeah, I like the word validate that you use. I think that's a powerful one, because that is really, in the end of the day, just like I said, the things that would frustrate me, as long as I get validation from you saying, hey, this is a legitimate feeling, because you may not feel how I feel in those moments.
Totally.
You're like, why are you struggling with this? Or why, in these things, just like, obviously myself for you. So, but I think having the other person validate that those are legitimate feelings, you're allowed to have those feelings, those emotions, and you are open to talk about it.
I'm literally going to cry just thinking about how much we've grown.
It's good. I love it.
We've grown so much, and it's so beautiful. Marriage is hard, social media wise, I think, because a lot of people have a lot of questions. It's people will present this marriage and it's so beautiful and so great, and then all of a sudden they post that they're getting divorced. And a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming, and they were posting about how happy they were. So when people post about how happy they are, people are like, oh, what's really going on behind the scenes? Are they hate each other and they're fighting all the time and they're getting divorced? There's it's so hard to know really what a marriage is at all about just from social media. And every couple decides how much they want to share, because it is such a private thing. But I feel we want to share about our family life, because I think it's really important, because it is clouded in a lot of mystery. God calls us to share what we've learned with all of you who are here, and us offering our experience might resonate with you in some way or help you in some way. And so we want to share about what we've learned. And if you guys have any questions, you want to leave those in the comments, you can ask those questions. We can try to make more videos for you if you have questions about specific things. We said a lot.
Yeah.
That was a peek into everything that goes on over here. Subscribe to my channel over here for more videos. Do you want to come on more?
I think it'll be good.
Yay! All right, we'll talk to you soon. Bye!